Hey, Donna.
Hi, Al.
How's it going?
It's going well. It's going well. There are some things in life that come up that are challenging sometimes. I'm aware of some people that are sick with COVID actually, and in other countries, not in my neighborhood, but people that I care about. There are other difficulties with health and passing that I've experienced recently. In spite of that, it's a good day and the sun's shining.
That is a good thing. Yeah, so we're going to talk about those kinds of things that happen in life, that those challenges that come up in life, and because they come and they go, and how do we deal with them in a Feldenkrais way?
Mm-hmm.
And how do we start moving ourselves towards the positive? Like you were saying, it is a good day outside, the sun is shining, the air is fresh.
Mm-hmm.
How do we find the pleasure and the comfort in ourselves?
It's such an important question to be asking. And, it's important to remember that when we have upheaval, or like moving houses, like you've done recently, it's like these things are stressful, they're challenging, or if we lose loved ones or we're concerned about loved ones, how do we feel it? Not make it okay when it's not okay, or feel the sadness and then move to the next state. And it's not that you're done with a state, because the sadness will come back, or the frustration of moving as you're sorting and redecorating. There's challenge in that. So we experience challenge in our lives, as you're saying, in an ongoing way. Things come up.
Yeah, and you're spot on in what you're saying, because we did just move house. And it wasn't necessarily the house that we chose. The house kind of chose us. And so it's a very interesting process to move through all the different emotions that come up. Because we just moved back from New Mexico. We'd lived in an apartment for a while, and then we're moving into this house. And my wife and I will often sit down, we'll talk, kind of just processing through these emotions and just, acknowledging that, this is going to come up. We're going to cycle through this stuff. We just need to talk about it and acknowledge it, and really be grateful for the opportunity that we got. In this housing market in Colorado is nuts. So we're very, very fortunate to get into a place. So there's all these different feelings that come up. You're right. And so it is a process, and we don't want to get stuck in something or attached to a particular emotion and cling on to it, good or bad, because, trying to do that usually doesn't work out too well.
It doesn't work out so well to be stuck in an emotion or even a thought, or we could even say a state. It's the movement. I love the metaphor of the wave movement of emotions. It's like you keep moving through, and things come up and then they go down, and they come up and they go down. And it's like you stay present, acknowledging, feeling and expressing, speaking to friends and loved ones. And in the midst of all of that, being able to drink in, a fresh breath of air and absorb some sunshine. Even if the sun's behind the clouds, it's still out there. Or in the evening, if there's a moon, wow, it's just so incredibly invigorating to absorb the beautiful things around us. And allowing that, there's something about, I believe we have to allow that, the receptivity to absorb the beauty of life in the midst of difficulty.
Yes. Yeah, we do. In Feldenkrais lessons, we work with that process. It's woven into the structure of the lesson, the way we guide awareness, the way we do the movements. They're designed in a way that really help us to move away from the experiences we're having of ourselves that are uncomfortable or painful, and towards the pleasant sensations, the pleasant aspects of ourselves. And I think that's one of the brilliant things about what Feldenkrais did in creating these lessons, is that very subtle thing. And it's not, I think it should be more emphasized explicitly in lessons, so people can really learn to engage that in an intentional way. That you move your attention towards the comfortable, you get more of the comfortable. You move your attention towards the ease, you get more of the ease. You start to build a greater repertoire of that in your nervous system and in your life. And that's a really important skill, to be able to go from the uncomfortable to the comfortable and be able to have choice about that. Because you know what? Uncomfortable stuff happens in life, and you're going to be there. You're going to be able to have a pathway out so we get stuck in that.
Mm-hmm. Yes, and feeling some hopefulness about that and acknowledging when you move from, from sort of sadness to optimism or hope or, even a cheerful state. So acknowledging that you're capable of shifting like that so that you don't stay stuck. Because sometimes when I talk to my students and they're feeling down or they're feeling blue or something difficult's happened, there is a sense that they're afraid, along with whatever else is going on, that it's not going to get better, that this is it. And when you're in something, sometimes it feels like this is it. Yeah. But when you can remember that you've had other moments of this is it, and you've shifted out of them, it helps you see things over time instead of getting stuck into fear along with sadness or fear along with frustration, or challenge.
That fits in with our last podcast, and we're talking about how the brain predicts, how it's anticipating. And so, people get into that state of feeling bad about something or depressed, and then the brain goes, well, we're doing this now. We're probably going to be doing this tomorrow and the next day, and starts to create a feed-forward system. So we have to have some way to, like you're saying, to get out of that enough that we can see it over a span of time. This is a bump in the road or a little cul-de-sac we turned off into, that we can come back out and get on the path of life, going where we want to go, and having more balance in our emotions and our thinking.
One of the ways that we rely on creating a difference in ourselves, the Feldenkrais way, is to notice our breathing and scan. And so I wonder if listeners, you'd like to do that while we're chatting about this and see what is your state right now while you're listening. And you can think of that as a certain state of muscular contractions, for example, or an overall state of vitality or low vitality, high vitality, something in between, preoccupation with something, whatever it is. Or maybe you're just breathing in the sunshine. I don't know where you are. So notice your state, scan yourself from your feet upward, noticing your breathing, whether you're standing or sitting, and just check in. And if you were going to describe the state you're in right now to a loved one, what would you say in a few sentences to that person that cares about you? And continue scanning when you imagine speaking to a dear one, and filter that on up to letting your shoulders rest, your arms, your hands, your neck, your head, even your face. Your face can rest even more, your jaw, your tongue. And you may even feel like the little ear muscles, the deep ones inside your ears, can open up a little bit more, and you may even hear a little bit more clearly. So notice yourself, and we'll keep chatting, and then let's check in again in a minute.
That's a good idea. Because it's important to check in with yourself, because sometimes we get absorbed in our experience and we don't pause long enough to feel or sense what we're actually sensing. And there's something about that, coming out to feel our physical sensations, like the feet on the floor, the movement of the breath, weight of the shoulders, how the arms are hanging, the sensations of the face. Now, these are really true, kinesthetic, tactile, and proprioceptive sensations that we're having. And if we just feel them, they feel good. And they can be very pleasant to feel, just those sensations. And it's a nice way to kind of move out of an unpleasant emotion or an unpleasant thought process, something maybe that's obsessed in the mind or something. And you can come back to your physical sensations in the present, and you can find the pleasant ones and focus on those. And those create the pleasant sensations. It's a really nice way to create more emotional cognitive balance. in
And
yourself.
there's a variety of ways to do that. We in the Feldenkrais method, our way to do it is to go to movement and sensation, self-awareness. That's one of our dominant ways. But sometimes if you want a quick shift, you can put on some lively music, music that makes you happy, and you could even dance around a little bit, or flap your arms a little bit, whatever you want to do if you're sitting and you can't run around or dance. And um, in a relatively short period of time, you can actually experience a state shift. So this way of manipulating our own nervous systems is something that I'm really intrigued with, and I love it. Actually, it's freedom to me.
Yeah, I like it. And I'm curious, you're talking about that, and what comes to mind is kind of a counterexample that some people who are really rigid in the way they are in their life, the way they feel, the way they think, and they really don't want to change. They don't. As Feldenkrais said, some people are comfortable in their misery. They've become attached to it. It becomes so familiar to them. It's like an old leather jacket, that they put on, and it's so worn out. It's in tatters. It doesn't really serve them anymore, but yet it is so comfortable. And it's interesting to encounter people like this. Have you encountered people like this in your work, your practice, and your training?
Absolutely. Sometimes, like you're saying, when you rock the boat, it's like, literally we do movements and it kind of rocks the skeleton, and they go through a process of destabilization. And sometimes people get really mad. It's like, why would you say that? Or why do you want me to do that? Or what's the value of this? Or, oftentimes they come back for more because they're somehow intrigued, or they're interested in the process, or they're hooked intellectually in some way. But it's not always so easy to go with the flow, and to go with the rocking of the boat, and to find a new way of establishing yourself out of the old habit patterns. So yeah, sometimes people strike out when they're destabilized. They get mad. And if you're the one guiding the movements and present, I have definitely, known people to be frustrated with me. And, my job, I see my job as being able I need to hold the ground, hang on to the tether, and allow people to go through what they go through. Of course, I'm not going to take any abuse. So, there are limits to this, but people can share their frustration or annoyance or grievances, and hopefully then they'll start to see that it has to do with their perception and their state, and that this method and the way that I teach and the way I know you to be teaching, Al, is a very gentle way to create transformation and change in the lives of others. But we are able to withstand the process with people, the process of change, and what people go through. And we understand it from our own personal experiences.
I expect you probably have experienced that more as a trainer in a training environment than with your clients. I don't have that many experiences with my clients. I've had some clients who were kind of stubborn, I would say, stubborn in their willingness to learn or change, or that kind of thing. I think going through training, or even in private lessons, there can be points at which there's some confusion, or there's a disturbance in the habits. Perturbance, as we like to say, we like to perturb the habits.
Yeah.
And when that happens, it can be kind of alarming or upsetting for some people.
Disorienting, maybe.
Disorienting, yeah. And I always found I really kind of like that experience myself when something like that happens, and I experience that kind of confusion, and I'm disoriented, and it's like, wow, this is so cool, because I know that my habits are being challenged. And that when I come back together, I know I'm always going to come back together. I come back together in a better way. It's part of that process that we need to learn to trust, that when we're doing lessons and our habits are being pushed a little bit, they're being challenged a little bit, and we feel a little bit uncomfortable, we're just kind of separating those parts of ourselves, and they're going to come back together in a nicer way, in a more functional way, because the brain and the nervous system are really smart. They're really brilliant. And you take things apart, it's going to bring it back together in a nicer way because it wants to function in a better way. And given the opportunity, it will.
Well, I completely trust the process like you do. You're describing a little bit of dismantling oneself into parts and reassembling them into a higher level of integration. And, we have both experienced that and seen that in many other people. So it's building trust in that process, isn't it? And when you have a Feldenkrais practitioner to work with you, it's easier to trust the process because you get that reassurance from people. So I'm just remembering too, I want to ask people to check in with themselves. And, it's interesting that you just described the process of integration. I'm repeating that because even scanning, breathing, noticing brings forth different parts of you. So we call it a part, or maybe it's an aspect of you, an aspect of your nervous system, your sensations, for example, your feelings, your emotional flow, your thought patterns. But as you put one of those in front of you, the other ones are a little bit more in the background. And you could even think of it as a Post-it note in front of you. What am I feeling right now? You check in. Okay, yeah, I'm feeling calm. I feel pretty open. Then you check in and say, what am I thinking? I'm just thinking about what Al and Donna are talking about and whatever else has been in my life. And then you let that go. And then, okay, sensing my feet on the floor, sensing my breathing, the length of my spine. And you kind of go through the process of putting something out in front of you and then acknowledging it and letting it go and going to another aspect of your own functioning, your own self. And then you just let it all go. And, a nice way to integrate even something like this is to turn a little bit and look to one side and the other and scan the horizon, because your eyes in the seeing of your environment actually move you to a higher level state of integration. So it brings along all those parts, and bingo, your brain, your nervous system knows how to do it. You don't have to control that process.
That's right.
There you are. You're in a different state.
Yeah. And that is the brilliance of this work, the Feldenkrais method that we so love and practice. So we should probably start to wrap this one up. But I think I love this discussion, and I think we need to carry it on in a future podcast. Just remind people to go over to our website, feldenkrais4life.com, and see our current offerings. And then, of course, visit Donna's website, donnaray.com, for her classes, coaching. And what else are you offering there?
I have some upcoming courses, training programs, as you said, mentoring, coaching. And I have a Monday night class at 5 p.m. It's Southern California time. But people from all over the world join in on the East Coast. So that's available too. Yeah,
so there's lots of options for working with us directly or indirectly. And you can visit my website, achievingexcellence.com. And I have a lot of audio product and books, videos you can download and access as well. You can work with me personally if you're in Longmont. Join my online classes Thursdays and Tuesdays in the morning. All right. So anyway, look forward to hearing from you. Leave us a review on Apple. Give us 5 stars on Apple. Yeah. We're having fun. I really hope you're all listening and enjoying our conversations. And again, send us some questions, comments, and we'll address them. Thank you. Cool. Bye.
Bye.